threw my ring in the water on our cruise ship vacation after he caught me mid-act with random. You know, sometimes we do things just because of lust or greed, or I don't know how I can put this, but we ladies sometimes do things without thinking, and when karma visits us, we start regretting and end up asking yourself, what is wrong with you, or what if I did this or that? And if I didn't listen to, I wouldn't have gotten myself into this mess. A lot of things start ringing in your mind, and reality kicks in like an unexpected tornado. To tell the truth, I regret and will always regret what I did because it showed how weak and not being able to avoid temptation I was. I miss him so much, but there is actually nothing I could do. I messed up, and it is not anyone's fault but mine. I had brought this upon myself. My stupid actions cost me my future love. I didn't know okay. I got tempted only to find out that I got tempted in the wrong place and at the wrong time. Now I'm suffering the consequences. Please tell me what I should do. So my story goes like this. I, female 25, met this handsome man at a grocery store. I was going with my little sister, 13, trying to buy a few things for the family since it was almost time for Christmas. So this handsome man came into the food aisle that we were in. I think he was lost because he asked where he could get packs of M&Ms. I directed him to another store that sold bulk packs because he wanted bulk packs. My loud sister then told the guy that he looked cute. How embarrassing, sigh. To my surprise, the guy smiled at her and appreciated the compliment. A few days later, I found out that he was actually staying around the neighborhood. I asked myself how come he didn't know where the M&M's bulk packs were sold if he was around. He liked morning jogs, so I saw him when I was taking out the trash. He saw me and greeted. I had thought he had forgotten about me, but surprisingly he didn't. So we had small chats and exchanged our names. He told me that he was Kevin, male, 26. Our good conversation was cut off, but some old man who I later figured out was his stepdad. So the man interrupted our conversation to tell him that he should get inside. I asked myself how old was Kevin to be told to get inside like he was a small boy. I don't know what tempted me to this old man, but whatever it was, I regret it so much. Before Kevin went inside his house, he asked for my numbers and told me that he would like to have friends around the neighborhood since he had recently moved this side. I gladly gave him that, and that was how we started getting along. I remember when he used to visit me at home, my parents welcomed him with warm hands. We got along pretty well. He had a very charming smile, you know. I admired everything about him. You know when they say God took his precious time to make the most perfect human being? That was what he did with Kevin. His mother and father surely took time and chose which semens to use in order to give birth to a perfect man like him. As we got along, his stepdad would sometimes shout at him for spending time with me. I really don't know why he was acting like I was the bad girl that any parent wouldn't be near their children. As much as I am an introvert, I loved and still love going out and having fun. I was not a rebellious child that disappointed her parents. I was working at one of the good accounting firms in New York, name withheld for personal reasons, so I was not a disappointing child. So I would take Kevin out for some drinks as friends since he was not from Aurora, so I decided to show him our small town. 2 days later, he came to my house and asked me to accompany him somewhere, only to find out that he was actually taking me to the park. He wanted us to have a picnic there, and then he confessed his feelings for me. It was so sweet and romantic. My heart was beating fast because I had just told myself that whatever I had felt inside, it would be my secret. I also told him that I had felt the same way, but I couldn't tell him that I had felt like how I felt the first time we started being friends. I couldn't degrade myself like that, no ways. So I just agreed to be his girlfriend and everything was settled. The crush that I had was replaced by me being Kevin's girl. I was so excited. Time passed, our relationship was great, and it was like we were made for each other, you know. Another thing, I had become friends with the two girls were from around our neighborhood. They were not as bad as I had thought, it was just that they loved going out whenever they had time. They made sure to enjoy their young life, they were forward but cool. So one day they had invited me to go with them to one of the clubs not far from our place. I was a bit skeptical at first, but I eventually went with them. Mind you, I had never drank any alcohol or been to clubs before, so it was my first time and I enjoyed every moment of it. We had so much fun. We drank from cocktails to shots until we were out of it. I couldn't even speak to Kevin that night because I had left my phone back at home since we were going at night. I knew that he was going to get angry at me for going out without telling him, the worst part of leaving my phone behind. The following day, he came to my place looking livid. I knew that he was angry at the fact that I had to go to a nightclub and didn't tell him. He told me that he didn't want me associating myself with the girls that I had suddenly become friends with. I didn't understand why he didn't want me to associate with people that live next door, and we see each other every day because he was not always with me, and I needed some time outside home and away from my family for a little while to find myself. I mean, why would I coop myself inside the house each and every time as if I was sick or I was in my old age? Our relationship had ups and downs like any other relationship. We had been dating for over 3 years and everything had been perfect. Alex was handsome, charming, and kind, and I had fallen deeply in love with him. But on that fateful night, I had let my guard down and made a mistake that would haunt me for weeks to come. Our relationship was a bliss. We were happy and so much in love. The way our relationship looked promising and too perfect. I had hoped that we would end up together forever. I had even introduced him to my parents, and my mother loved him so much. They treated him like their own son, but I guess I had introduced him way too soon. So one day he told me that he had planned for us to go on a romantic cruise vacation or vacation. I was so happy when he told me the news. I mean, it had been a long time since we had gone on a vacation, even though we had never been on a cruise trip. So in my mind, it was going to be the most romantic and awesome vacation. You know, when you are overly excited about something and you can't go a day without speaking about it. That was me flexing to my family and the girls from next door that my man was taking me to a cruise vacation. Little did I know that it was going to be a mess of all messes. 1 week later, we went on vacation type of thing. I couldn't wait for that day to arrive, to a point that I didn't even sleep waiting for the following day to come. And when the time hit midnight, I started packing for the trip. Then by 4 in the morning, I called Kevin asking him what time we would depart. It didn't help that he told me that we were going to depart in the afternoon. Time passed and the time to go came. I couldn't be more excited. We were enjoying our vacation, well, more like I was enjoying it. I got to meet and socialize with new people. The experience was just great. You know, there was this certain guy that kept looking at me with eyes full of lust. He somehow made me uncomfortable, but in a good way. I don't know if you understand. The guy was just yummy. He was handsome like a sweet cake. We kept stealing glances at each other whenever Kevin wasn't looking. As I stood on the deck of the cruise ship, watching the diamond ring sparkle in the sunlight before it hit the water, I couldn't help but think about how our romantic getaway had turned into a disaster. It all started a few days ago when my boyfriend Kevin and I embarked on our dream vacation. We had been together for 5 years, and this cruise was supposed to be a celebration of our love and commitment to each other. The first few days were perfect. We spent our time lounging by the pool, exploring the ship, and enjoying romantic dinners together. But as the days went by, I started to feel a little restless. Kevin was spending too much time at the casino, and I was getting bored. That's when I met him, a handsome stranger with piercing blue eyes and a charming smile. We struck up a conversation by the bar, and before I knew it, we were laughing and flirting like old friends. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't help myself. I was feeling lonely and neglected, and this stranger was giving me the attention I craved. We exchanged numbers, and before long, we were secretly meeting up on the ship. It was all so thrilling and exciting, until Kevin caught us in the act. I was mortified as he stormed out of the room, leaving me feeling guilty and ashamed. The next day, we had a huge argument on the deck. Kevin was furious, and I was trying to apologize and make excuses. That's when he pulled out the ring and threw it into the ocean. "You don't deserve this," he said, his eyes blazing with anger. "You don't deserve me." I watched in horror as the ring sank beneath the waves, feeling like a part of me was going down with it. I knew I had made a mistake, but I never meant to hurt Kevin like this. As the ship sailed on, I was left to pick up the pieces of my shattered heart. I realized that I had been selfish and foolish, and that I had risked losing the love of my life for a fleeting thrill. I spent the rest of the vacation alone, reflecting on my actions and trying to come to terms with what I had done. Kevin barely spoke to me, and I didn't blame him. When we returned home, we had a long and difficult conversation about our future. I begged for forgiveness, and Kevin told me that he needed time to think. It's been months now, and we're still working on rebuilding our relationship. It's not easy, but I know that I need to earn back Kevin's trust and respect. As I look out at the ocean, I remember the ring that was lost at sea, and I know that I'll never forget the lessons I learned on that fateful cruise. I hope that someday Kevin and I will find our way back to each other and that our love will be stronger than ever. It's been a year now since the cruise ship incident. Kevin and I have been working on our relationship, attending couples therapy, and communicating more openly and honestly. It's been a tough journey, but we're slowly rebuilding our connection. One day, Kevin surprised me with a small box. Inside was a beautiful new ring, similar to the one he had thrown into the ocean. "I want to start fresh," he said, his eyes shining with hope. "I want us to move forward together." I was overwhelmed with emotion as he slid the ring onto my finger. It felt like a new beginning, a chance to make things right. We've had our ups and downs since then, but we're learning to navigate our issues in a healthier way. We've discovered new hobbies together, like hiking and cooking, and were making time for regular date nights. I realize now that our relationship wasn't perfect and that we both made mistakes, but I'm grateful for the journey we've been on and for the love that we share. As I look at the new ring on my finger, I'm reminded of the lessons I learned on that fateful cruise. I know that relationships take work and that forgiveness and communication are key. And as I glance over at Kevin, who's smiling at me with his piercing blue eyes, I know that our love story is far from over. But little did I know that trying and fixing our relationship was actually a curse in disguise. Kevin and I would fight a lot, to the point that whenever we had a heated argument, he would remind me of the abomination that he had caught me doing. We were fine and in love again for a couple of months until we were not. Kevin even uttered words like, "I cursed the day that I met you. If I knew better, I wouldn't have bothered asking you to be my girlfriend." He would say a lot of things like I was too good to be true. While Kevin, on the other hand, had started stressing me out, he had been acting a bit off and cagey. I didn't know what was going on with him because if I asked him, he would just blow. I had thought he was going through something serious, so he needed to deal with it alone, so I gave him some space and time alone. So I went back home for a little while, hoping that he would release his mistakes and do better. Time passed and his behavior got worse, to a point that we would argue a lot. I had suspicions that he was cheating because whenever I would go to his apartment, he would just act weird or go out with his friends. It was like I was dating his apartment furniture because he was never home. Even our intimacy had started slacking. He would suddenly lose interest during the moment. The trip with the girls from our neighborhood came in handy and really helped me unwind and forget about Kevin's issues, that he didn't want to share them with me or face them. So the girls had decided to go to Belgium for their sister's birthday celebration. We found a group of guys and girls there, then we joined parties. The group of friends that we had found there were actually there to celebrate one of their friends' birthday party. So they asked us to join them. Some of them were going with their girlfriends, while others were going alone. I missed Kevin so much, but I couldn't let him and his issues ruin my weekend getaway, and I wanted to forget about what was going on in our relationship. So I pushed everything back and lived in the moment. I had too many drinks and I was feeling carefree and silly. And before I knew it, I was dancing on the table, singing at the top of my lungs. The guys were laughing and cheering me on, and I loved the attention I was getting. I was letting my wild and happy self loose a little. As I was busy dancing and having fun, I saw this guy by the bar of the club that we were in. He had piercing blue eyes and a charming smile. He was standing at the bar, watching me with interest, and I couldn't help but feel drawn to him. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't resist. I made the same cheating mistake twice, and I knew that if Kevin was to find out, it would be over for me. He kept looking at me with his sexy eyes. I decided to stop dancing and catch my breath, so I went to the bar to get water because I was too sloshed. He came over to the side where I was getting my cold water, and he introduced himself as Michael. He was even more charming when you looked at him closer. I didn't believe him because I knew myself that when it came to dancing, I had 2 left feet, but I managed to make a plan and move my body whenever I am in the moment or tipsy or drunk. I don't remember much of what we talked about, but I do remember feeling alive and carefree for the first time in months. It was exhilarating, and I couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to be with Kevin. But as soon as the thought crossed my mind, I felt a pang of guilt. I knew I was with Kevin and I loved him. It was just that he was going through some things. I don't remember much of what went down. The next morning, I woke up full of regrets, a hangover, and a sense of dread. I knew I had made a mistake, and I couldn't bear the thought of telling Kevin what had happened. I knew that I had betrayed Kevin's trust after I had worked so hard to gain Kevin's trust, and I was terrified of how he would react if he was to find out. I tried to push the thought out of my mind and enjoy the rest of the trip, but I just couldn't shake off the feeling of guilt and shame. So as I lay there, I heard a knock at the door. It was Kevin, and he looked angry. I was pretty much shocked because I had left Kevin behind. I wondered how he got to Belgium. I asked what he was doing there. Instead of answering, he just slapped me. He was fuming. I had never seen Kevin being angry like that ever since we had started dating. He asked me what had happened the previous night. I got puzzled because I didn't know nor remember what he was talking about, so I asked him what he was talking about. He started throwing tantrums at me and demanding the truth out of me. So I told him that the girls and I went to the club and we saw a group of guys with their girlfriends who invited us to join their party as they were celebrating one of their friends' birthdays. But I left the handsome guy's situation aside because I knew he would just blow out and things would get out of hand. I tried changing the topic to something else. I asked why he came all the way from New York to Dubai and who told him that we were at the guest house. I started interrogating him because it showed that someone had told him where we were and what had gone down the previous night, so I needed to know who the snitch was, because I knew that it was one of the girls. There was no way someone from the group we were chilling with would have had time to make live videos and post them on social media with our location. It didn't make any sense. Kevin asked me to tell him the real truth or he would find it out himself, and I shouldn't even try to change the topic. I knew there and then that I had to come clean, even if it would ruin a lot of things, but I had to. He took out his phone and showed me a video of me dancing on the club's table. It was so embarrassing to watch myself dancing like a loose girl. I knew I had been caught and I couldn't deny it. I took a deep breath and told him everything, from the moment we went to the club, to when I saw the stranger, and to the moment I woke up on that morning. Kevin listened to me, his face growing more and angrier with each passing word. When I finished, he stood up and paced the room, his hands shaking with rage. He asked me questions I didn't even know how to answer, because surely if I were to answer them, he would get more furious and maybe do something he would regret someday. I know that Kevin had anger and trust issues which were caused by his parents, but I had thought he had changed since he had gone to therapy, but you would never know with people who knew how to pretend as if everything was well. He asked why I did what I did to him again, and that he thought him and I had something special going on, but he didn't think he would be able to trust me again after what I had done. Those words pierced through my heart. I didn't have any comeback or response because my heart was really broken by his words. I knew that I had messed up big time, and there was no chance that our relationship would have survived that situation. The chances were like 0.1% to nothing, and there was nothing I would have done. I knew I had hurt and disappointed him, and I felt a deep sense of remorse. I begged him to forgive me and promised to never do anything like that again. But even as I said the words, I knew they were hollow. I had made a mistake, and there was no taking it back. I hated the person who took the video of me dancing over the club's table, and I knew that I had to find out who it was, because with their forward tendencies, they had destroyed my relationship with Kevin. I also had to find the person who told him the guest house we had booked in. I thought I had friends who would have my back no matter what, but I had snakes, and I realized that very late. Over the next few weeks, Kevin distanced himself from me. He stopped answering my calls and texts, and I knew he was punishing me for my mistake. I tried to reach out to him, but he wouldn't have it. During those weeks, I had found out who had sent the guest house's location and a video of me dancing over the table to Kevin. Well, one of the girls that I had thought were friends had sent it to Polly, my ex-friend. And Polly, because she was the one who had Kevin's numbers, she had forwarded it to him just to spite me. I just couldn't believe it. I thought the girls had my back, but clearly they didn't. Instead, they were backstabbers. I also found out that one of the girls was jealous of my relationship with Kevin because she had a crush on him back in high school since they had gone to the same high school. But Kevin never paid attention to her. And she was not Polly's friend at that time. So her jealousy and envy made her think of destroying my relationship with Kevin just because of a crazy love crush. So I went back home until Kevin called me one day and asked me to come back, and that missed me only to find out that he wanted to avenge himself. Our relationship just became toxic. Kevin had also started going out drinking a lot, changing girls like he was changing underwear. It was just a lot to take in, you know. Yes, I had made a terrible and horrible mistake of which I regret a lot, but Kevin was still stuck in the past. Later on, when I saw that he wasn't changing and he wasn't even willing to, I just decided to end things because everything was just heavy for me to handle. I had hoped that he would change and become a better man, but instead he would get worse each and every time he saw my face. After weeks of begging and trying to reach out to Kevin, wanting to tell him how sorry I was for repeating the same mistake twice, and officially ending things with him, even though I still wanted him back and would do anything to have another chance with him, maybe a goodbye intimate moment, he finally called me back. I was happy and hopeful, thinking that he was finally getting back to himself and he had forgiven me. You know, I had that hope that says, relax, since he had reached out to you, it meant something good, not knowing that my hope and faith was deceiving me. I had hoped for nothing because he asked to meet up with me. Well, more like he invited me to his apartment, not knowing that he wanted to drop a very huge and destroying bomb. So I went there with confidence. I even shaved my nana and bought new lingerie, thinking it was going to be a meeting to kiss and make up everything. Kevin was my weakness and my strength. My heart was full of hope that I was getting my man back, despite what my jealous ex-friend had done. When I got there, he didn't look happy to see me as I was, but I brushed that off, thinking I had come when he had just woken up. I knew that he would get grumpy when he woke up and didn't feel like talking to anyone, so I understood. He appreciated that I had honored his invitation, then he told me that we had to talk. My heart was pounding out of my rib cage. I got suddenly scared of what he wanted to say. He didn't even beat around the bush. He just told me straight to my face that he had lost attraction to me ever since he received the video of me dancing on top of the table in the club, and the thing that I had told him about the guy that I saw at the club. He said a lot of heartbreaking words. I tried apologizing and begging him to give me another chance to right my wrongs, but he just bluntly told me that he couldn't, and he wouldn't be with a person who didn't respect herself. I admit I did wrong and went all nasty with the guy I saw at the club, but we didn't even go far or made out. The only thing I did with him was kissing him and touching him here and there, nothing more. And as for dancing on top of the table, I was just letting loose and having fun, but all that cost me my man. One stupid night and one stupid mistake that I made when I was sloshed took away my love from me. How can one silly night take away my 3 years relationship? I wished I didn't go to that girl's weekend getaway, but I wanted to rewind because Kevin was also distant and didn't want to speak with me sometimes. I was stressed about him to the point that I drank all my sorrows away. I wanted to forget about the way he was treating me even though I was his girlfriend. As much as I was wrong, I blamed him for everything that I had done because if he was not stressing me out, I wouldn't have made the mistake that I did. After he said everything that he wanted to say, I went back home with a very heavy, broken heart. I was so devastated. I had never felt so low in my life. I felt like I had disappointed myself and ruined my own life. I had always been the perfect girlfriend, always putting my boyfriend's needs before my own. And I couldn't understand why he would just throw me away like that. Like I had never meant anything to him or our relationship never meant anything to him. I felt like I had lost a part of myself, like I was missing a limb. How can one mistake ruin my chance to love like this? I couldn't believe that the person I had loved so much had just dumped me like a used tea bag. I was in real denial. I couldn't get myself to accept that I had lost Kevin. So after a few days, I tried to reach out to my ex-boyfriend to try to understand what had happened and why he had broken up with me. But he just ignored me. He had blocked me on all social media and wouldn't answer my calls or texts. It was like he had disappeared from my life completely. And that shattered me to the core. I wanted to know why he would do me like that after everything we had been through and after everything he had put me through, from being distant to bringing girls in my presence as if I wasn't in the room. I tolerated his *T and tried to keep up with it, and guess what he does? He doesn't apologize or anything, but he dumps me. A few weeks passed and I was left alone to pick up the pieces of my shattered heart. I spent days in bed, unable to eat or sleep, just staring at the ceiling and wondering what I had done wrong. I felt like I was drowning in my own tears, like I was suffocating under the weight of my own grief. My parents were worried about me because they were taking turns on checking if I was still okay. It was just too much to bear. I couldn't even face my own parents. I felt like the shame of a mistake I had made was written on my forehead and the whole world was seeing what I had done. I was slowly sinking into depression. I had no friends, no boyfriend, I was just me. I had cut all of the friends I had because I couldn't trust them anymore. I didn't know who to and not to trust anymore because they had shown me that they were not real friends that one could rely on. But they were poisonous snakes that would bite you and leave you with a very huge scar and a deadly poison in your system that would eat all your body cells and destroys them bit by bit until you were left with nothing, then you would die. Those were the friends I had. 2 weeks of feeling sorry for myself and closing myself in my bedroom. I then decided to wake up and stop having a pity party for myself because it was not going to unbreak my heart nor bring back Kevin, or undo the mistake that I made. So I began to realize that I needed to get up and move on. I couldn't change the past, but I could control my future. I started by taking care of myself, by eating healthy and exercising regularly. I also started seeing a therapist to help me work through my feelings and come to terms with the breakup. I knew that I had stressed my parents a lot because my mother was no longer herself. She had lost a few kilos and I felt really bad about that because if I didn't act like I was the first person to be heartbroken and to be dumped, I wouldn't have stressed them like that. Which was also the reason why I had taken the decision to go on a healing journey. Not for myself only, but also my parents. They deserved getting their daughter back. It wasn't easy, but I slowly began to heal. I started to focus on my own needs and desires rather than constantly trying to please my ex-boyfriend. I also started to explore my own interests and hobbies like painting and hiking, and I discovered a new sense of purpose and joy in my life. I had to heal completely first before I would think of having another guy in my life again. I had to learn a few techniques of controlling temptations and alcohol before I started dating again. Even though it was not going to be like the relationship I had with Kevin, I had to move on. The relationship I had with Kevin, I used to call it something special and rare because of how we used to be and how we loved each other, but then I blew all that. As the months passed, I began to feel like myself again. I still had moments of sadness and regret, but they were fewer and farther between. I had learned to let go of the past and embrace the present, and I was starting to see a bright future ahead of me. My parents were happy with my improvement, so I decided to start a small business that would help me not to be cooped up in the house the whole day. Since I had qualifications in interior designing, I decided to venture into that business. It was not easy starting it from the start, but I did, with the support I got from my parents. So as I was still on my healing journey, I started to notice other men looking at me with interest. I had always been confident and outgoing, but now I felt like a shadow of my former self. I was hesitant to date again, fearing that I would only end up hurting someone else. I didn't trust myself fully to be committed to someone else. My heart was still on Kevin, but I knew that I had to move on and find love again. Ever since then, it had only been me and my parents, and I had been so much at peace and happy. Alex came to see me at my workplace to apologize, but I gave him the same answer that I had given Jonathan. I am now living my life for myself, and I am truly happy without any man. My small mistake taught me to look deeper in people before letting them in my life and use the love word. As much as I had done wrong by Kevin, do you guys think I took the right decision not to fight for him? Or do you think it was a good idea to let go of him? Please give me some tips and advice on how I should have dealt with the issues.